All right. Good morning. It's me. Mr. Suter will hopefully be here soon. He texted me. He said he's on his way. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to get started on my own. I put the attendance form in the live stream, so you should be able to get it. Hop on there and do your attendance. So let's see who is here today. And we've got Darius here first. I've got Zuli, Ashton, Eli, Abby, Emily, Alexia, Finley, Maya, Lexi, Annie, Radika, Zuli, Patience, Gladys, Emma the Lurker, Mrs. Claybaugh is here. So a little bit weird today for me because usually Mr. Suter presses all the buttons for me. So I have to figure out the back end and do everything. So somehow, because I was going to go share the screen with you, somebody went in there and pressed the surprise visitor, but made it dark. So I'm gonna have to fix it. But
hey,
it's Mr. Suter. Only 51 seconds late.
How about that? That's something.
I almost wore that shirt today. It is Orange and Black Day. So
there you go.
But good morning, everybody. William Hatfield, I just did attendance. I don't know if you want to run down and see if there's anybody. Dom's here. He just popped in.
Look at all these names. All right. It was a rush. It was a rush today to get here, but I got here. And it feels weird. I'm not like in control. I'm not on we switch sides.
I know. I now see why you can post comments though. It's easy on this one thing.
Yeah.
Instead of having to flip back and forth. So anyway, here we are. I was gonna pop over and start looking at the good old assignment. Is that where you're at? You ready to go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody apparently tried to change the theme on it in the last couple of minutes or whatever, and now it's all black. And so I'm trying to figure out how to change that back because we can't see half the people's writing because they changed the theme of the entire PowerPoint. So I just don't know where that is. I'm trying to remember. Change background. Is that it? Change background. Sorry, whoever did it, but I'm going back to white so that we can see stuff. And now I just need to put that on the screen. Look how wonderful that is. Are you proud? Because
I am very proud of you. You're doing wonderful.
All right. So we asked you to kind of post an organism that has changed over time. And there are a couple of things as I was going through that I thought about talking about. And I'm sure Mr. Suter did too. So how do you want to do this, Mr. Suter? Do you want to run down and just click through and look at the next one? Or what do you want to do?
Wow, look how many it's grown.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to do, and we didn't get our typical morning of like, we normally talk for about a half hour before we do this. And we didn't get that today. And that's because, like I told you the other day, I had to drop my wife off at the hospital. But so do you want to do a couple of them today and like do a couple each day, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, that's fine. Let's pick and choose a couple and kind of go through. I don't see anything on this one. So yes, the red fox, but what about it? So
here, wait, go back to that one.
Is it that the writing is?
Yeah, the writing was kind of blacked out, but I can read the writing on the back end. It says, they think the North American red fox originated from two separate lineages. They were isolated nearly 500,000 years ago by advancing glaciers, and it has been able to evolve to be able to stand on the cold temperatures. So there was a fox. The glaciers came down, separated two populations, and one of them has kind of evolved or changed to be able to withstand cold temperatures. So, very cool.
Trying to some people are trying to get fancy with their slides and Bink. Trying here, just trying to do quick stuff to this.
And so that would be one thing that we will maybe talk about later on, this types of isolations, how you separate populations. But we'll talk more about that later.
All right. You want me to talk about geckos?
Sure.
All right. So this one says about geckos evolved sticky feet many times. That I'm kind of interested about what you mean by many times. Do you mean there's many geckos that have sticky feet, or that they got it and lost it, got it and lost it, and got it and lost it? Because that's something different to talk about. But potentially, yes, they have sticky feet. So it's kind of interesting how you worded that.
Ooh.
Yeah, lots.
So let's see. The evolution of the horse. 50 million years, transforming a small dog-like sized forest dwelling into a modern horse. Without reading everything that's here, we're seeing an evolution maybe or a change in the hoof.
Change in the hoof.
Okay. That's really interesting. So we see a change over time. That's a long period of time.
All right. The Arctic fox. Okay. So saying that the Arctic fox has changed over time to living in cold and harsh environments. I'm guessing this is what Darius is trying to say about the ice, and now the animal lives in the cold and harsh environment.
The next one, Mark Baker is talking about dogs. And in this, we talked a little bit about dogs the other day. So this is an interesting slide, but he gives some insight on how did that happen, probably from wolves tailing hunters. So as hunters would hunt and kill things and leave scraps behind, some of the more docile wolves probably got slipped scraps by the hunters. And over time, that trait of being docile would get bred for because they would survive better, and that's probably where the beginning of dogs came. And that's really an interesting story right there.
That's a nice one. All right, so Chris talked about Mexican cave fish, and so Mexican cave fish, I guess, had very little food to survive, and so it changed because it doesn't have eyes anymore in order to conserve energy. So it doesn't have eyes because it doesn't need then the visual parts of its brain. So that has changed over time for that cave fish, because, caves are dark.
So Dominic and Jalen were talking about the lion-tailed macaque. And if you read what they have written here, it has something to do about the fragmented landscape. And so that fragmented landscape would cause them to have different populations. And this is going back to what somebody talked about earlier in the foxes, that once you fragment and separate species, or separate individuals of a species, they kind of get different. We talked about natural selection yesterday. So we're going to select for different things in those different populations, and they're going to kind of grow apart. But we'll talk more about that. That's this idea of reproductive isolation that we'll get into later in the week. So that's really cool too.
All right. We've got the gorilla. And so basically they're looking at the change in gorillas. They're saying, that they're giving a lot of information specifically about evolution, talking about the separation of two species between the Western and the Eastern gorillas. And again, this will probably be things that we can talk about as we get into specifics of the evidence for evolution, and what that separation is. Is it geographical? Is it mechanical, and those sorts of things, but then giving some distinguishing things about the two different types of species.
So on the next slide, Erica and Emma are looking at lice, and I am now suddenly all itchy. Oh my God. Every part of me itches. Head lice are thought to have separated from body lice. So they think that maybe there was one kind of species, but around 100,000 years ago, maybe a little more than that, they say, we see this evolution of lice, and it was probably around the time that humans started wearing clothes. So a change in environment creates different niches. And so if you think way back to Mr. Beichler, he probably talked about niches when he talked about ecology. And so different niches open up different areas. And so that kind of isolation thing, again, we'll talk more later.
Thank you, Erica and Emma, for making.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like,
all right. So Maya's slide talks about the giraffe. And so what's interesting about this one, as soon as she did this, and you know what I mean? The giraffe is a great example. I talk about giraffes all the time because there's 7 different subspecies of giraffes, and most people don't know that. But when we talk about giraffes, you know, it says in here, most people believe that it grew to help giraffes reach high trees and foliage. But actually it helps giraffes regulate their body temperatures and help compete for females. So the giraffes are a really interesting thing. And I'm going to kind of go off on a side note for this for a minute. And so the thing is that I agree with what Maya is saying, but the picture that she put in here, the picture in here leads me to something else that I need to share for a second. So hold on one second. All right. And put it in there. Okay. So, and this brings up a guy by the name of Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. Okay. And so he had this idea before Darwin that, or during Darwin, I got to think about that. But anyway, he believed that traits were acquired and then passed to their offspring. So that picture of the giraffe that Maya showed, and I can't go back and forth because that's too high-techy for me at this particular second, is that picture shows that the giraffe's neck kind of extended or stretched for the leaves. And then from then on, it got longer and longer and longer. So the thing is when you think about that kind of idea, it's like this. Okay, there are some tribes in different areas where things like this are common, where they elongate the woman's neck by putting these metal rings on there. And so as they put the metal rings on, her neck gets longer because they look at that as being more beautiful, more desirable. And there's all sorts of other things behind all of that. But that's what they do. But so what Lamarck is essentially saying is that it's a use it or lose it philosophy. So if it's not something that you need, you lose it. If you need it, you'll get it. And then that will pass on to your offspring. But if that were the case, then every woman that did this, wouldn't then their offsprings have longer necks? And that's not the case. They start over each time. They start at the age of about 2 and do this. There's other cultures that do this kind of thing. Foot binding for a long time in Western culture, where they would actually, starting around age 4, break the bones of girls' feet and wrap their feet around, and it was called foot binding, to bind it until it was in this shape, into this like teardrop shape. The more smaller the foot, the more beautiful the foot. And so we've done these kinds of things before: the stretching of earlobes, the binding of feet, the elongation of necks. All of those things have happened in culture, but we don't pass them on. It needs to be done each time. So that kind of goes against Lamarck's idea. And some of you might go, oh man, well, why are people doing these things to themselves? Why would they be doing that? There's a high percentage of people that died from foot binding. If you remove the rings incorrectly from the woman, you can kill her because it can actually sever, the muscles. If they're not strong enough, it could sever the spinal cord, et cetera, but look at this trend. This is American culture, the gauging of ears. It's really not that different. That's something that people have done. And so to kind of go back to the whole giraffe story, it's almost like the Elephant's Child book, which I don't know if you listened to when you were younger, but I did, where the alligator or crocodile or whatever it is in the story grabs hold of the elephant's nose, extends it, and then all of the offspring are longer. So again, I agree with what Maya wrote, but I am, I just want to be, hesitant to say that slide with that picture. If you look that picture, it kind of makes, that difference. And I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but
go back to go back because we've done about 15 of these. Maybe we come back to those again tomorrow. Because weren't you in the other evolution one?
Yes.
So we could go back and just keep going. And then you had another slide there, didn't you, about the giraffe?
No, did I? A minute.
Which I thought was good.
I did put it in there. Planning. And so this kind of shows that difference in opinion between Lamarck and Darwin, where Lamarck, like I said, is change over time. You acquire this, you pass it on. And so, it's still that idea of change over time. It's just more of as they extend, they're going to pass that on. Not that there was some random change that was beneficial and passed on. And so like you can see in Darwin, you have different lengths, but then the ones that it's hard to see maybe, but down here, the ones that are shorter, they died because they can't reach the higher leaves.
Right. So do you want to get into the adaptations now?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Take it away.
Well, and I guess I just gave it away, right?
Yeah.
So what is it called if you have a trait that helps you survive? If an organism has a trait that helps it survive in its environment, what is that trait called? And we just saw a whole bunch of them. What are they? We can say it in the chat. Maybe you weren't paying attention. What's it called in the chat? A trait that helps an organism survive.
And I think they almost know that this was where we were going based on our assignment. You can see that from the slides, that it wasn't just about an organism changing. A lot of them talked about it. And Eli's got it, an adaptation. Good. Adaptation.
Good. So we basically have a couple adaptations we can share with you. We can just go back and forth on this too. You want to do the first one or do you want me to do that?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is an owl. And what's really interesting about an owl is if you look at its face right now and you see where its eyes are and where the white fur and its beak is, its skull is a little bit smaller than that area. So you can figure the beak would be on the skull, the eyes would be in the skull, and then the rest of its head is feathers. And so there's a lot of feathers there. And if you really look at that owl's head, what it looks like is a radar dish. And so it's nature's version of a radar dish. And so what it does is it helps take sound that's coming towards it and direct that sound, all those feathers, direct that sound so it can use its head like a radar to focus in on a sound. This is why an owl can jump off a branch at night, swoop through the air, dig down through leaves with its talons, and grab a mouse that's running under the leaf cover. Because it has this kind of radar dish-like head that can really zero in. And look at its eyes. Its eyes are nice and big. It would give it better night vision and stuff. But it's not about the night vision as much as it is about the hearing and catching prey at night. So that's an adaptation that helps the owl hunt at night.
So the next one kind of shows the different feet of different types of birds. And so every bird is a little bit different depending upon what they need their feet for. Do they need it to help with swimming? So the mallard duck is going to have that webbed foot to act as a flipper for when it is moving through the water. The hawk needs to have those talons, and not just the talons to grip on. Like the woodpecker has a little bit of those long, like talon-like projections to grab onto the wood. But a hawk not only needs to do that, but it needs to be able to grab its prey and hold on to its prey. The snow pheasant, it has to have that adaptation of having a more feathered foot to protect against the weather, and the ostrich needs to be able to run, you know what I mean? You need to be able to think about what are the feet being used for. So different adaptations potentially for the different uses.
And then the last example that we have for you is a kiwi. So this is a bird. And if you look at this picture, there's actually a bunch of adaptations that you can see here. One is just the camouflage. It's a ground bird, and it's camouflaged really well with the picture. But more importantly, if you look at its beak, it has a very long beak to stick the beak into the ground to get prey. But what's really cool is that the nostrils of the beak are at the tip of the beak. And if you look at most birds, their nostrils would be back closer to their head. And so why are the nostrils all the way up at the tip of the beak? So when it sticks its nose underground, sticks its beak underground, it can smell underground to find the prey that it's looking for. So that's an adaptation to help the kiwi be able to dig into the ground and find what it's looking for. So.
Well, and since my little one ran in here, I thought I would share one more human adaptation. You know how they say that your children always look so cute and then they look like their dads right away? That technically is an adaptation because they want the parent to want to be and take care of the child. So, yes. You want to say hi? No? Okay. Not yet? Okay.
Where are we at on time? 21 minutes. Can we need to give the assignment. Do you want to do that next slide real quick, or do you want to save that for tomorrow?
Sure. I already flipped it, so let's go.
Okay. So the last thing, and so this is like preview, because I want you to keep coming back to learn more about evolution because this topic is so neat. Here's the thing. When people complain and go, I don't believe in evolution. First of all, like I keep saying, evolution, change over time, is a fact, and we can see it. And we're starting to see it in your slides. We haven't quite hit what I want to hit yet, but we're getting there. We're starting to see it. But where people really have a problem is right here. So if you look over here, we have two different things. We have microevolution and macroevolution, and three, and then speciation. Right now, as a preview, something I want you to think about as tonight and as we move forward. Microevolution is this idea. Look at the right, where we have wolves and coyotes and dogs and foxes and things like that are all kind of the same, and we can really see similarities. And it's really, really easy to accept that these might have all been similar at one time and have branched out to fill different niches. Macroevolution is the idea that fish became amphibians, amphibians became reptiles, that reptiles branched off to birds and to mammals. And that's where people really have trouble. So people that would say, I don't believe in evolution, what they're really saying, without knowing it, because maybe they haven't thought about it or been educated enough, is I don't believe in macroevolution. I don't believe in this idea that fish became amphibians. Amphibians became reptiles. So what we need to do for the rest of the week is kind of explain micro, macro speciation and how, again, we have a mechanism in natural selection, but there's other mechanisms then. And we started to talk about it with reproductive isolation. How do we isolate two populations and why would they change because of new niches? And then we need to get into what is the evidence? Is there evidence that says a fish evolved into an amphibian evolved into a reptile? And what does that look like? And one really well right now, just cells and DNA, two, cells and DNA. But there's a lot of other ones that are going to make you go, going to blow your mind. I promise. It's going to blow your mind when you see it. If you haven't seen it before, When you see it, you're going to be like, oh. So I think the only other thing we have left is just to tell them what the assignment is, right? You're muted. By the way, FYI.
I am muted. I'm sorry. I was trying to put it up there so that they could see the assignment. So, you're doing a flip grid. Yay!
Because we're tired of not seeing your faces.
Yeah, we want to see you.
Or hear you.
Yeah.
So really easy, right? Share an adaptation. We just shared like 4 with you. We want you to do the same thing. Find an interesting animal, but not necessarily an animal. Find an interesting organism. It could be animal, plant, fungi, protist, eubacteria, or archaebacteria. Any of the 6 kingdoms. Find an interesting organism. It does say you can screen record, so there's a feature in Flipgrid that allows you to record your screen. So if you like want to put the picture on your screen and record it and talk over it, I don't know if you can turn your camera on, but if you can, do it because we really want to see your faces. But you don't have to. Or if you want to print a picture off or find one in a magazine and hold it up, you can do that too.
Oh, we don't care what you look like, and you are all in the same boat. Okay, just remember that. Like, when's the last time that any of us had, really thought about any of that?
Yeah, wake up your gecko, Alexi. That's a great idea. Do an adaptation of your gecko and show your gecko. If you have a pet and you want to show. Look at this. I stopped shaving when this all happened, and look what happened.
It's okay. I mean, split ends, craziness. It's cool.
Right.
Yes, your dog, think about that. There's a lot.
I haven't done my makeup in a month.
And like if you haven't brushed your teeth, then we can't smell it. So
You haven't taken a bath. I had the same shorts on for like 5 days yesterday. I mean, come on. Like, what do you want from us? We want nothing from you but you. We miss you so much. We want to see you. So we really hope we see some adaptation assignments. We'll give you a couple days to do this. We'll come back to this. Same thing, although I hope people get it done early. If you already did the slideshow, get it done. Speedy the Turtle can get on there. Yeah, whatever you want to do, hold up a picture, get your pet, get your little sister. Because there's adaptations in people. Try not to do one that other people have done. So the earlier you do it, the less you have to kind of look through to see what other people have done.
That's right. All right. Well,
yeah.
Stay safe. Wash your hands. Dunk your Oreos. Have a good day.
We love you.